But speaking of someone who has gone through a bit of a change in behaviour, what we wish Antifa would do, in fact,
from Antifa to Al-Qaeda,
is actually the Syrian president, Al-Sharaa. He is the first Syrian president to ever be received at the White House, and that happened today in this historic meeting with Donald Trump. Now, just have a listen to how Trump described Al-Sharaa and his meeting with the Syrian president.
We want to see Syria become a country that's very successful, and I think this leader can do it. I really do. I think this leader can do it. And people said he's had a rough past. We've all had rough pasts, but he has had a rough past. And I think, frankly, if you didn't have a rough past, you wouldn't have a chance.
Just a footnote on that rough past that Trump is alluding to. He was actually charged by Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi that the Trump administration famously executed back in 2019. You'll remember Trump said he died like a dog. That was Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. So that notorious terrorist gave Al-Sharaa the command to expand Al-Qaeda into Syria.
I mean, it's a rough, look, my rough past is like I've done some questionable things in pubs at 2 a.m. after I've had a skinful. And his rough past is I ran a terror organisation.
We've all done things we regret, join a terror organisation, run a terror organisation, let the past be
Join a terror organisation that for 20 years was trying to kill US troops in the region. It's pretty radical. But to be fair to Al-Sharaa, in 2013, he split from al-Baghdadi, and he claims by 2016, he was on his path to being a more moderate leader. And I guess, there is some extent to which Trump may be right that perhaps what it takes in some of these Middle Eastern countries where they have been so war-torn for so long is someone who speaks that language, who knows how to use force, who can kind of control the country and the warring factions. So we'll see. I do hope Syria does well. I think it'll be good for the whole region, but they're going to need hundreds of billions of dollars to rebuild after their 14-year-long civil war. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, this is the thing. So Al-Qaeda actually, strangely enough, did become more moderate, but only because an even more extreme terror group sprung up in Syria at the same time. This was, of course, ISIS or Islamic State. And then you had ISIS, Al-Qaeda, other sort of ragtag groups, and then sort of the moderate sort of good guys, if you like, in the Syrian civil war who were trying to bring democracy to Syria. And you had these guys who wanted to bring a theocracy to Syria. Both involved the overthrow of the Assad government, obviously. And they basically decided, well, look, we'll just kill the government that we both hate for opposite reasons, and then we'll just kill each other and see who wins, presumably. And this is why the US had a real problem with funding the moderate rebels, quote-unquote moderate rebels, because they knew that any guns and weapons that they gave to the moderates would immediately just been taken by the Al-Qaeda affiliates and ISIS. And so eventually it got to the point where there were so many bad guys in every direction. The US was having to make a choice. Do we go in on the side of al-Assad, who's using chemical weapons against children, or do we go in on the side of what is basically a front for Al-Qaeda and ISIS? And the US kind of just went, and handed it over to Russia and Iran. And Russia and Iran did the things that the US was scared to do, like, for example, bomb the bejesus out of the good rebels because they knew that they were undermining the bad rebels as well. And then Assad hangs on and his family hangs on. And then suddenly this rebel movement that everyone thought was dead suddenly just appears out of nowhere and overruns the capital. And now they're in control. And the guy who was president of Syria a couple of years ago is now, I think, hiding out playing golf in London or something. So
I think he went to Russia, didn't he?
Or was it Russia?
I think he's a taxi driver in Russia.
He's over in Russia.
Playing golf in London, taxi driver in Russia, wife with hair.
And you see, the thing is, there was obviously, as you said, there was great movement to achieve regime change in Syria. But you've basically changed one dodgy guy for another bad guy, right?
That's right.
You've got now in Syria, Assad did bad things, there's no doubt about that. But religiously, it was a reasonably peaceful operation he ran. There was not wide-scale governmental discrimination against people of different religions. It's rather a different story in Syria now. Since this fella's taken over, you've had slaughter of Christians, you've had the slaughter of other minority Muslim sects across the country. That's become a big problem. But here he was talking to Fox News.
In the last 60 years, Syria was isolated from the rest of the world, and there was a cutoff between the United States and Syria. And this is the first time a Syrian president visits the White House since the establishment of Syria in the 40s of the last century. And so after the fall of the former regime, Syria has entered into a new era, and this will build on a new strategy with the United States, especially with the United States.
And look, you know, I know that Trump is doing his best to achieve some level of peace in the Middle East, and maybe that will this will assist in that endeavour. But it does make me uncomfortable seeing a man who, until about 5 minutes ago, was sort of hell-bent on the destruction of the United States, now being effectively endorsed by the United States.
Well, you know, the other interesting thing about this is very much Trump being Trump, because it was Obama who famously said there was a red line, and if Assad crossed it, the US would intervene and blow him to kingdom come. Assad crossed it, the US did nothing. He called their bluff. It was Trump who got elected saying, I'm not going to get involved in any wars in the Middle East, and actually pulled, abandoned the Kurds in Syria, which in my view is absolutely shameful. But when he saw images of Assad using chemical weapons on kids, Trump instinctively just went, right, that's it, I'm going to kill him. Bombed the bejesus out of it. And that's why Trump particularly hates Assad. And so with this guy, it's the case of, well, my enemy's enemy is my friend.